welcome to Commander Central episode 161, and today we're going to talk about some alternative ways to win a game in EDH. I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Boys, welcome back. It's just the three of us. Dan is gone.
Yes.
Dan is gone.
And good riddance.
Wow.
So I have a story about Dan.
Okay. Oh, nice. All right.
I have quite a few stories about Dan.
And
I got to know Dan very well.
And in case anyone was
night.
wondering, the good riddance comment was a joke. Dan was a delightful guest and a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah.
So we went out for Max's birthday Saturday night.
Yep.
And all these hooligans taught Dan the Wisconsinite ways. I drank mainly water.
And soda.
And soda. So at the end of the night, we met a new couple. Guy's name was Hanzo. The gal's name was Sam.
Okay.
And as they were leaving, they were talking about Dan and how he's a really nice guy, but he is super intense. That's Hanzo's exact words. He's like, man, that was a real nice guy, but wow, is he intense?
I could see someone describing Dan as intense. He's been an intense guy.
Yeah.
It's a good time, though.
Good ways, though.
We had a really good time having him here. We played a ton of games. I thought he did a really nice job guesting on both those episodes.
Yeah, I did
He got a
great.
compliment from Jumbo Commander on Twitter about what a nice job he did.
Yeah.
So it was an all-around excellent weekend for GP Max's house.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was the birthday?
I'll have to write notes for other guests from now on.
There we go.
Just kidding, Dan. I love you.
Were you happy with your birthday weekend, Max?
I was. I now feel like a human being again.
You looked pretty rough on Sunday morning, I will admit, when I stopped by to pick up Dan and take him to the airport.
Yes, I felt very rough at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It was a long night's what you're saying.
And an early morning.
All right. Well, we got a lot of games in. That was a good time.
Tons of fun.
Did anyone play anything memorable or worth talking about here?
I remember Dan did say, "Why am I surprised? I'm at the shop of the show that preaches graveyard hate, and I brought all my graveyard decks."
He did get graveyard hated pretty hard a couple different times. Although I think he
Should
did
not be a surprise.
He did win one Muldrotha game after fighting through a scavenger grounds and a Bajuka bug and a relic, and like he eventually was able to, after like 3 of those things, get a few things in the yard, and I think he pulled that one out.
That's the upside to a dedicated graveyard
Yes.
strategy, is that your whole game plan is dedicated to that, so you can bounce back. But decks that have a side strategy of being graveyard stuff, you shut that down, that cuts off half the strategy.
Well, I will quick tell that tale, actually, the Muldrotha game, because that was an interesting game. I had played my Jeru deck in that game, and towards the end there, I had gotten out all 3 Elspeths, and then played Contagion Engine and had mana available, and there was a lot going on, so people weren't really counting things out. So I was able to, and I had some blockers up to keep the Elspeth safe, passed around, and actually Dan was playing the turn before me, got to Dan's turn, he did whatever he was doing, did the pass to me, and I did, before the end of your turn, Contagion Engine, which put double counters onto both Elspeths, came back to my turn, I was able to untap Contagion Engine again, so I put 4 on all of them and then ulted all 3 Elspeths. One gives all your creatures +2/+2 in flying. I copied that ult with Rings of Brighthearth. So at that point, I'm sitting at 2 emblems that give them +2/+2. One gives all your permanents indestructible, and then the third one is the one that destroys all things except for that Elspeth and tokens and lands.
Yep.
So I wiped the board except for my stuff that all had +4/+4 in flying emblems at that point. And I had, I think, 12 or 16 Elspeth tokens out at that point as well, the soldier token she makes. So I killed one person, knocked
Me.
Was it you?
It was me.
Knocked the other person down to whatever, hit Dan, and then had to pass because I didn't have enough damage to kill everybody. Goes back around to Dan, and he drops Liliana Dreadhorde General.
Yep.
And then brought in then cast Deep Glow Skate, which doubles her counters and let him fire off the ult, which forces everyone to sacrifice down to one of each
permanent,
which gets around my indestructible on all of my things. So I had to sack down, and that was the game he won with Muldrotha, because he was able to force that Liliana. And then he actually, the next turn, had to do it again. He was able to make a copy of Deep Glow Skate and do it again because he needed to, because I kept Elspeth, made more tokens with her, and I was going to swing through and and probably kill him. He wound up having to then play. He played a Vraska, then made the copy of Deep Blue Skate so he could do his Liliana again. Made the Vraska tokens off her alt that kill you when they deal combat damage, and alt win con we'll talk about. And that's how he killed me.
Oh.
So I lost despite ulting 3 Elspeths in one turn, one of which I copied.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, never give up.
Never surrender.
I bet you that's how Elspeth felt when Erebos and Helios turned on her.
even if you're the guest in someone's shop and home and they're just trying to win a game, apparently you just keep lingering on and not letting the person win.
I don't know. I nuked him out pretty hard in game 1. One was the first game that we played.
Same here.
Actually, I remember at one point he said he's like, I've lost like 6 games in a row. Like when his like first 6 games, I think he lost 6 or 7 games. So he wasn't ever salty about it. But I think that might have been his first win was that Muldrotha one, and he earned it absolutely. So if you out there want to reach out and say hi to us and talk about any massive comeback someone's had against you, how would you find us, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. Find us on YouTube searching CMDR Central, and find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also head over to patreon.com and search CMDR Central to check out our reward tiers. And if you are so inclined to support the show financially, you help us keep the lights on. You buy me pants, not us pants, me pants, for when we move to video. And, we give out a lot of cool stuff on our Patreon.
We do indeed, such as a couple things right now that are being given out.
Yeah, right now for Patreon, our current Patreon supporters and anyone that joins by the end of the month will get a chance to win a Commander Central t-shirt. We'll give away 2 of those, so 2 lucky winners this month.
Yes, indeed.
And then we're also giving some stuff away on Twitter, which would be the Teamer and Simic enamel pins that we've picked up through some collections. So just find that tweet and retweet and follow us, and you'll get entered to win those, and we'll announce those winners in early December.
Very cool. Any other outstanding business we have here? I don't think we do. I think we can just kind of jump straight into the show here, right?
Let's do it.
How efficient are we? Sometimes we mess around for 45 minutes before we get started. Not quite that bad.
Oh, I tried to run some lady off the road, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll save that for Thursday's show.
Yep.
All right. Okay. That's like the cliffhanger you're saying?
Yeah, because then they'll be like, oh, what happened? And then I'll tell it on the next show.
There we go.
All right. Bet you, Chris, you're getting good at this.
Learn from the best, buddy. That's what I do.
So we're talking about alt-win conditions, and the first 2 things I think we'll talk about here are ones that aren't tied to cards, because most of them are a specific card that lets you win, but there are 2 big ones in the game that aren't really based on a specific card, and that's Mill and Infect. And Chris himself has a Mill deck he just recently built.
Yep.
So the first thing we'll talk about that, how effective is Mill as a win condition in your experience? Just in general, not even your deck, because your deck's pretty new. Like, have you guys been milled out before for games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it been a dedicated mill deck or just something that happened incidentally in a deck that wound up working that way?
I don't know if it was dedicated, but it was a dedicated win con in a deck.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it was a dedicated mill deck.
Okay. So it does work. It's really popular in casual, like, homebrew. A lot of the mill cards get sold to people playing kitchen table Magic. I've seen statistics about that. For whatever reason, that's a beloved way to win games at kitchen tables.
That was my kitchen table 60 card
Oh,
deck
was it really?
was mill.
Oh, nice. So yeah, that is very popular there. And it's also, it does happen in like other competitive formats. Commander things get challenging because you have to mill out 3 people, and that's a whole different thing than milling out 1 person. And also in Commander, there's, as we've talked about graveyard stuff earlier, there tends to be a lot of people playing with their graveyard in some way, shape, or form, and you kind of have to defend against that in your deck, which is challenging, and you have to defend against it for 3 people, which is really challenging. So how well does that work for you so far, Chris, in your deck?
As it sits right now, the deck's it's probably got about 25% win rate.
Well, that's pretty good for an EDH deck.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't play Mana Rocks in it because it's just basic build to see how it plays, see if I even like the play style.
Well, now here's a good example of the graveyard, putting cards in the graveyard biting you in the butt. I've killed you 2 different times with that deck with Mirrored and Besieged. Actually, I've played the deck 2 times, against it twice, and I believe I've killed you both times with
The second time I milled you like 70 cards and
trying
still
to
didn't
find
hit-
it.
Yeah, to get rid of it, and
I top decked it.
then he draws it.
And just played it, and I was like, naming the Phyrexian mode.
I just started scooping up my cards like that. We're playing with another person, like, oh, what does that do? I'm like, we lost. That's what that does.
See, this is where you tune for your meta and you swap in like a Praetor's Grasp and go hunt something out of his deck that's going to stop you.
Well, Chris has the answers in the deck. A Ley Line of the Void would have solved that problem, or a simple Scavenger Grounds. You just didn't hit any of the things at the time that mattered.
I didn't hit anything.
But that is the problem with Mill as a strategy, is it does enable other people's decks sometimes.
There is another strategy to mill, and that'd be self-mill,
Yes, absolutely.
which would work a little better.
I would dare say I've seen more Traumatizes cast on the person who cast it than I have ones cast on somebody else. Being able to put the cards in your graveyard and then do the big reanimation, whether it's Rise of the Dark Realms, Roving Death, or whatever it is a really powerful play.
Yep. Or you got the Labman win or the Jason Raveler's Secrets type of win by milling yourself.
How about Infect? It's a big strategy in a lot of places, and I hear people talk about it. I don't see that much Infect, really.
I see cards in decks that give Infect,
Yeah.
but not dedicated Infect.
I've tried a dedicated Infect deck. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I tried to do a Xenagos Scout of Revels Gruul Infect deck.
Okay.
It's really great when you kill the first person in your pod and then you run out of gas or a board wipe happens, and there's only so many creatures with Infect in those 2 colors specifically that it's hard to get those back or get them out of the graveyard. And that was back when green didn't have all the draw it has now and red didn't have all the draw it has now. So I think if it were to be revisited, I think I'd still have just as poor success.
The problem I think you'll have also is they're probably never going to print any more creatures with Infect.
No.
So your deck is probably going to stay pretty stagnant. I mean, you might get the occasional a new variant on an overrun or something that's worthwhile in that deck, but
Or more reanimation effects.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to stay pretty stagnant. So that's kind of a downside there. But you make a good point. There are a lot of singular Infect cards that see play. Blightsteel still shows up in decks.
Tainted Strike.
Tainted Strike absolutely still shows up.
Triumph of the Hordes.
Yep, which is, effectively kind of winds up just being an overrun. It's just like, but it does see plenty of play. And what's the Graphic Exoskeleton? Shows up in plenty of weird decks, particularly commanders that do damage to people. I've seen it in Nekyazar decks. I've seen it in Brian Stardarm decks. So that one does show up.
Yeah, the big downfall to Infect is the moment that you start showing that you're playing Infect, the entire table turns on you.
Yeah.
Because they know all they need is just one little hit and it's going to be game over for them.
And you wind up with that problem where you have to decide, do I want to hit one person and then have everybody else be basically unscathed and not worried, or do I want to spread the damage around, in which case everyone wants to get rid of you because they don't want to die because they're now all at 4 or 5 or 6 or something, poison counters. Yeah, that's a very tough one to balance in EDH too. I'm always kind of surprised. I've seen people make comments about how their meta has talked about making Infect like 15 poison or something. 10 never seems to be a problem in Commander, at least when I've seen it.
I don't think 10 is a problem because of all the downsides. It's a one-trick pony,
Yeah.
Unless you're playing maybe a Traxo, where as long as you can get that Ichor Rats out and get everybody a poison counter, you're set to go as long as you can keep a Traxo alive, or you have a huge proliferate engine going. But outside of that, it's once you show what you're doing, people are going to gun for you no matter if you're ahead on board, behind on board. You could be stuck with no lands and your one Infect creature died. Everyone's still going to gun for you.
I do think it's relatively easy to defend against too at a meta level. I think if you see a lot of Infect, black, white, and green can all run fogs. I think it's the kind of thing that you can deal with in most colors at least. And like, okay, well, I do see more Infect, so I'm just going to run a couple of fog kind of effects in my decks just to deal with it just in case. And they're really efficient too. Like black, we have a 1 mana open for darkness or 2 mana for a Dawn Charm and a white. That's really easy to do without screwing up your board plan too much.
Yep.
And you just can screw over an Infect deck that when they throw everything into getting that one shot to get the damage down, and then they're wide open for everyone else to crack back. I mean, I think it's pretty defensible. I just don't myself, I've never felt like it was too much and we needed to go to 15. So, okay. So we've talked about those two that we see a bit. Let's take a look at some specific cards. We're going to look at ones mostly that win you the game. There's a lot of kind of weird stuff in here that forces you to lose, like Final Fortune if you don't win the game at the end of your extra turn, or like the packs where if you don't pay the mana. But like we're focusing more on things that tend to be a strategy, a way to kill somebody or win the game that you're planning around versus maybe getting lucky if someone just can't win off a Final Fortune. There's also a weird card called Divine Intervention from Legends. That's an alt tie condition. If you successfully pull it off, the game ends in a draw. So I thought I would just mention that, but man, I can't imagine there's a lot of building around it. But I guess if you're playing Chaos or like your weird Chaos Troll deck or something, maybe you're playing Divine Intervention. Just trying to go for the draw. I guess that's maybe some kind of a weird moral victory.
It's only in 142 decks on EDH.
Yeah,
rack.
okay. That seems about right. So we'll just do these alphabetically and talk about what we've seen of them and how viable they are in Commander for people to actually build around. And the first one we'll throw to you, Max, because this is a card you just put into your Brago deck. Is that right?
Correct. I just put Approach of the Second Sun into my Brago deck. It's done work in the decks I've seen Chris played in.
Trash card.
It is a trash card, and yeah, I'm playing it. So this is a sorcery from Amonkhet for 6 and a white. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life.
An important note there. You just have to cast it.
Correct.
It does not need to be successfully cast. It does not need to resolve. You just need to pay the mana and reveal the card, and you have attempted to cast it. That's good enough to win a game.
Yes. Brago's been looking for a finisher. Brago's somewhat of a combo deck, and this is a good way to win without having to get through a 2/4 commander damage commander over and over against 3 other people.
You dig down and draw plenty of cards in that deck as well. I don't know if this is the most popular alt-win condition. That would probably still be Labman, but man, I've seen this in quite a few decks.
I think this is a little more popular than Labman because I think Labman has that stigma to it. Like, oh, you're just going to play Labman and draw your deck and win.
Well, Labman also requires much more of a build around. This is very much a card where you can do what you just did, Max, and say, I need a win condition in my white/whatever deck. I'm going to put this in there because I have some draw,
right,
and I have a little bit of control, and I will maybe just accidentally get there sometimes. And that's a reasonable way to use that card.
Yeah.
Like, I think of all the alt-win condition individual cards, this one is maybe the easiest one just to splash into a deck. And at 1 white pip, you can run it in a whole lot of decks, too. It's not at all like stuck being in mono white or something. It can be in any deck that runs white.
Yeah.
You played this a lot against this a lot in Standard, I believe, didn't you, Chris?
A little bit. I mean, it wasn't too awfully bad.
How much have you seen it in Commander?
Once.
Just
once?
once?
Besides me.
Yeah.
I've seen it a couple times. I never, ever feel salty when I lose to it, though.
No. It takes maybe not as much setup as Labman, but it
Sure.
does feel like they earned it a little more.
And you can respond to it, too.
Yep.
Although you do create that real chaos thing, because I have absolutely, like, forced a shuffle on somebody in response to them putting a 7 from the top, and then you kind of forget. Like, it's easy to be like, well, that's taken care of. That's not taken care of. That can
Nope.
But at any point in time, that can just be there. So, but I actually like Approach. I think it's a good, balanced alt-win card. It's one that you can actually run and achieve victory with, so I'm a fan. One thing worth noting about Approach, the first Approach you cast does not need to successfully resolve. Is that correct?
Correct.
But the second one does,
Yes.
because it needs to resolve in order for the clause to have happened.
And in order for the resolution upon the card to say that you win, it needs to resolve.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So the first one, it can get countered or whatever.
Yep, it can get countered, it can get bounced, whatever, as long as this card will read to see if there was another
It was
approach.
cast.
Yep.
But the second one has to actually have everything occur
Yep.
for it
This
to work.
is a very
Gotcha.
weird. It's a very weird card because if, let's say, you cast this from the graveyard for the second cast or whatever else,
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count because it has to be from
Yep.
your hand. It also checks to see if it's the same approach.
Okay.
So if it changes zones at any point in time, it's not the same approach that was cast.
Like somehow if you gave it rebound or something.
Yes.
Oh, Okay, interesting.
Don't ask me. It's weird. I'm looking at all the rulings on Scryfall, and I'm like, well, some of the stuff doesn't really matter, but it is something that could be intriguing because you never know about the weird shenanigans we run into.
So like in standard, if you could run like 4 in a deck, did it care?
Yes.
Yeah, you ran 4 in approach and standard. In blue-white approach, you ran 4 copies.
Yep. But they never actually changed zones or something. I don't know exactly how it works, but
in EDH, the area you're probably going to run into this is if you play the blue-white in our set and you give the next instant or sorcery spell rebound.
Okay.
And you cast this, the rebounded one is the second copy. It's a new approach, but it didn't come from your hand, so you're still not winning the game.
Okay. That makes sense.
Weird interaction with this card. I don't know why they print hard cards. Just give us good, easy ones that just say, you win if you do this.
Deal 3 damage, 1 red mana.
Right?
There we go.
Lightning Bolt. Bring it back to standard.
Yeah.
Oko's gone now.
Well, the next one we have here is a Tempest All-Seeing. That's a Sphinx, and he has an alt kill condition, not an alt win condition. When he deals damage to an opponent, you can reveal your hand. If cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game. So I have killed I've killed a table. I've won a pod just with the Tempest triggers. I've killed all 3 people in the pod with the same Tempest. One time.
Did Madomi have anything to do with this as well?
It didn't. It was it wasn't Madomi. It was a Pramicon.
Okay.
So the ability for people to crack back against me was pretty limited.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So that very much enabled me to do that. I think as your commander, you could definitely build around this. Run it as your commander. It's always in the zone. Be very careful with your deck and make sure you can balance that curve out. I think you could definitely do things. As a one-of in a deck, I would not be shocked if we look back in 2 years and I've never successfully managed to do that again in that Sphinx deck of mine. I think it was kind of a fluke, particularly as a one-of in your deck. Has anyone else even seen this cast anywhere aside from me and my Sphinx deck?
I know it's in your Sphinx deck, and I don't even think I've seen it yet.
Yeah. It's a perfectly fine card, and if you're just running it in a Sphinx deck as a 4 or 5 flyer that lets you draw 2 and pitch 1, that's reasonable too. And that's what I'm doing. If I happen to be able to kill somebody, that's great. If not, whatever. But I think this is one you have to build around, and you probably have to have it as your commander.
Yeah.
What's the next one here, Chris?
Azor's Elocutors. I probably butchered that name super hard.
Elecutors.
Is it Elecutors or Elocutors?
Yeah.
All right.
Something with the government.
They look like I don't know, something. They look like zombies.
It's the Azoria Senate, so...
There we go.
Oh, yeah, the worst, of all the guilds, but whatever. This card reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on said card. I'm not going to name it because I'm going to butcher it again. Then, if said card has 5 or more filibuster counters on it, you win the game. Now, a downside to this is whenever a source deals damage to you, remove a filibuster counter from it.
So, put it in play, put a counter on it, proliferate those counters up and win a game?
Yes.
Anyone seen this cast in Commander?
Yes.
Yes.
Really? What deck?
I don't even remember what deck it was, but I know I've seen it. It probably was a Pillowfort deck if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Nice.
This would have been years ago at the first shop we were all playing at. There was a Bant alt win condition deck.
Nice.
Because it had this one, it had another couple other cards we'll talk about today.
Okay, cool.
And it was all about proliferation on these types of cards just to win the game.
Excellent. That will be fun to see. I have not seen it cast, I don't think, ever. But it's viable. I can see how you could do it. I just think it would be tricky. It would be one I would absolutely put in a 5-color alt-win condition deck, though, for sure.
Yeah.
The next one we have here is Barren Glory, which was from Time Spiral Block. It is 6 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no permanents other than Barren Glory and have no cards in hand, you win the game.
Easy and white.
I mean, technically, you could. The no cards in hand part certainly is easy and white.
And the this is how you get around with mass land destruction.
Yep. I'd run every land destruction card I can get my hands on. Just be like, the only reason I'm running it so I can win with this card.
Zuran Orb, I guess, mass sack all your lands.
And, how do you get rid of Zuran Orb? That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's true. Yeah.
But no, I agree. I mean, there's enough land destruction in white. You're usually empty on your hand. And you have a lot of ways to tutor enchantments in white to get this out.
Has anyone seen this cast in the game?
I didn't know this card existed.
Okay. I think there was an uncard, I think, called The Cheese Stands Alone. And this is the real version of that uncard. They make the uncard first, and then they were like, well, that's actually kind of viable in a game. So they made this one, I believe, was my understanding. The next one, though, I think is a much more realistic win condition here. Biovisionary. 3 mana. This was out of Return to Ravnica. It's a human wizard in Simic colors. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So that seems tricky in Commander because you need 4 or more creatures, and you can only run one of these cards. But in Simic, you are in the colors that can copy and clone all the things.
Blue gave us 2 new clones or something
Right.
just
I mean,
recently, too. So
I feel like we get a clone at least every other set in blue, or some way to clone a spell. If not, outright copy it or make tokens of it or whatever. So,
Isn't this how CC Orion won a Traxable?
I think so.
Didn't he have a way to make 4 copies of this on his turn?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, you're in Simic. I mean, you have Progenitor Mimic right there. You have Clever Impersonator. There's just, it's Simic. It's an alt win in Simic.
Sure. And you have commanders like Raikou of 2 Reflections that has the ability baked in to make a copy. There's populate effects in green, so there's definitely ways to win with this one. Celestial Convergence. 2 white for an enchantment. It comes into play with 7 omen counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an omen counter from Celestial Convergence. If there are no omen counters on it, the player with the highest life total wins the game. And if there are 2 or more players with the same life total, the game is a tie. I've never seen this one, and I think in doing research was the first time I've stumbled across it. That seems fairly abusable, though.
I have seen it in EDH.
Have you? Okay, I mean, there's enough ways to remove counters off
black,
things.
white life game.
That's exactly the deck
Is
I've
that the
seen
deck?
it in.
Okay.
And then you play that little artifact dude who can eat a counter out of any permanent.
Hex Parasite. Vampire Hex Mage would get it done as well.
Yep.
So there's a couple different ways you could do it. I've never seen it cast, but that's a legit card, particularly for playing some kind of a life swap or weird life gain deck for sure.
Yep. See, I like cards like this because it's open-ended, where at any point in time, this card is going to backfire on you.
Absolutely, for sure.
Here is my question, since there really is no rules text on it on Scryfall. Does it only check for the counters at your upkeep? Because that's all kind of one block of text.
Yeah.
It's not something where you could be like, hey, play this, remove a count, play this next turn, remove a counter. Now you're down to what, 6?
Yeah.
Play your Vampire Hex, play your Hex Parasite, remove the other 6. I think you still have to wait till your upkeep for it to check.
I would assume so, yes. Yeah.
That's how I'm reading the card.
I think so
Again,
as well.
there's no rules text on
Yeah.
Scryfall, listeners.
I think the only cheating you could really do is removing the counters.
At your upkeep.
Yeah. So, what's the next red one here, Max?
The red one. So we have Chance Encounter. It's a red enchantment for 2 red from Odyssey. Whenever you win a coin flip, put a luck counter on Chance Encounter. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Chance Encounter has 10 or more luck counters on it, you win the game. Was this just a giant cycle?
I'm not sure. I think
I mean,
so.
Odyssey, the other one was from what? Prophecy? Those are all kind of in the same area.
I do like this card.
Yeah.
Can you imagine playing this on turn 2 with a mana crypt?
Oh,
And
sure.
they're sitting there flipping coins.
I've
And
never
you're
thought about
What's
that.
up, guys? What are you guys going to do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was playing Zender Split and Oka, I would throw this in the deck for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Even with no other things to fuel it, why not?
That's probably why it's $8.
Yeah, you know what? I bet. Yeah.
So here's some interesting rules text for this card. It says you can only win a coin flip if you are the player flipping the coin. Your opponent's losing a flip does not count as you winning one. This is a reversal of previous rulings, and this was posted back in 2009.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that was once the way it worked.
Interesting.
Neither did I.
All right. I will take the next one because the one after that I think is a card that has a special place in Chris's heart.
You got jokes there.
Darksteel Reactor, 4 mana. It's indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Darksteel Reactor. When it has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game.
That seems super easy to do.
Especially with an artifact.
And there are things that abuse charge counters pretty easily. You don't even need to get into doubling season stuff, although that probably wouldn't be bad either. Although I don't think I've ever seen this in a game.
Is it in... Did we see it in Andrew Cummings' charge counter deck?
It wouldn't surprise me if it was in there. Andrew Cummings is a writer at EDH Rack, and we played a few games with him in Kansas City. He had a charge counter deck, a dedicated one. So I would bet it is in there. I don't know if I ever saw it, but yeah, that would make sense. It does require a little more building around, I think, than something like Chance Encounter, where you just put it in your Zender Split deck, and it's probably effective.
Right. And
And 20 is a big number. But it is indestructible as well.
And you have all the artifacts that can proliferate,
Yeah.
let alone whatever color you throw this into.
Yeah.
I would love to just dangle this in front of somebody. They're like, it's at 19. And I'm like, de-glamour. And they're
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
no.
After they put approach on top. Then that's when you de-glamour it, when they've got approach.
Oh, owie.
Oh.
So, Chris, what's the next one here?
We have Door to Nothingness, 5-mana artifact. Door to Nothingness enters the battlefield tapped. Now for double Wooburg, you tap, sacrifice Door to Nothingness, and target player loses the game. And I have been shown the door on many of occasions.
I have died to this before. Max, how about you?
Never.
Never. Have you seen it in a game at least?
I back when I played 60-card kitchen table, I
Okay.
ran 4 of these in the deck.
I don't even know what deck I've seen it in, but I've died to this at least once.
Our
if
shop
not-
owner plays it in his 5-color Planeswalker
Yes,
deck.
he does.
I mean, if you were playing a 5-color deck, there's almost nothing special you have to do. You could very easily just put it in your deck and draw it and pay your 10 mana and win the game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Or kill somebody at least.
it goes great in Ramos decks.
Yes, yeah. Because the mana's right there,
Right.
sitting on Ramos a lot of times.
And the fact that it's not legendary means you can play all those artifact clones and just get 4 of them on the board right away and start going at
And in
it.
a 5-color deck, which is would have to be in, it's very easy to tutor up. You have access to every single kind of tutor as well. Yeah, it's a neat card. I have certainly died to it, and this is kind of what you like from an alt win condition, where it's relatively easy to splash in the right colors.
Yep.
The next one here, Epic Struggle, 2 green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 more creatures, you win the game. I have never seen this in a game before, and I'm kind of shocked. I know if you control 20 or more creatures, you probably are in a pretty good position to win anyway. And maybe if people are playing that kind of deck, they're just like, I'll just run an Overrun or a Crater Hoof or a Pathbreaker or Triumph of the Hordes or something and win the game versus messing with this.
But this is like guaranteed.
Man, I feel like you would at least run it as maybe a backup plan in that token deck, maybe, or at least try it. But I've never seen it cast before. Have either of you two?
I've never seen it cast. I've debated putting it into token decks, but I feel like you really need a way to like flash this in on your opponent's end
Sure,
step,
yeah.
knowing that the entire table didn't cast like a Wrath that
Yeah.
entire round.
There's that 4-mana artifact that gives you flash.
There is indeed.
There is. You're right.
That's an alt wallet kill condition at the $30 whatever it costs right now.
I think it's at like 35 or something.
Ugh.
I saw it the other day. I'm like, oh, no.
Good thing Leyline of Anticipation is cheap, and you can just play Simic.
Yes. All right, Max, what's the next one here?
A Trot of the Silencer. So this is out of Guilds of Ravnica.
Yep.
2 black and a blue for a legendary creature, Vampire Assassin. It's a 3/5 body. A Trot of the Silencer can't be blocked. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. The player loses the game if they own 3 or more cards exiled with hit counters on them. Etrada's owner shuffles Etrada into their library after every time it hits.
So run it as your commander and
Yeah, you get around the shuffle into library, don't you?
but then you put Helm of the Host on it, I guess.
Helm
is
of the
what you do.
Host. You can sundial. You can sundial the trigger.
Sure. There's a few ways around it.
Yeah.
Very much build around. You absolutely probably don't run this as one of. It's not one of the 99 in your deck. It's probably your commander, and you've got a specific plan and you're content that you know you're going to
A
lose.
suite of things
Yeah.
that allow you to do broken stuff.
And you're
with
going to
it.
lose a bunch of games, and that's just what it is.
I mean, double strike lets you hit 2.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
you also need to have that opponent have creatures.
Right.
So, I mean, if
Yep.
you're in a more of a combo-focused meta, this might not do the trick at all.
And tokens don't do any good either. So it needs to be a physical creature card out there.
Maybe you need to play this in some other type of deck where you can be the Oprah Winfrey of the table and be like, you can have this creature and you can have this creature.
We don't talk about those kind of decks on the show.
And then I'll hit counter them. All right, Chris, what's the next one?
We have Felidar Sovereign, 4 and double white for a 4/6 creature with vigilance and lifelink. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game.
Clearly designed before they were aware 40 life counter formats existed.
Or they made it for that.
Yeah.
And then reprinted when they did.
They have reprinted it since then, so they are aware. I remember the first time I saw this card, I was like, wait, that can't be legal in Commander. But to be honest, I've only ever seen it cast once or twice, and I don't know if I've ever seen it win a game.
I've seen it win a game once, but it is 6 mana. It's hard to get to in
It's
white.
6. It has to stay on the table for the most part unless you can flash it in somehow.
Yep. The only time I saw it was in a black-white, the 2 mana guy who gains you life, or you pay life and not Carador,
Eiley?
Karlov. Is it
Oh,
Karlov?
yep.
Uncle
Karlov.
Carl.
The 2 mana.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, in the life gain deck where their life's fluctuating so much, but they never really dip below 40.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's in plenty of Aurora decks as an alt-win condition, Aurora Pill Fort lists, but it's a very viable win condition, maybe the easiest one. But I think people just tend to not play it because maybe it's too easy almost.
The next one's going to be the easiest one.
You think so?
Yep.
Well, why don't you read it to us then, Chris?
Oh, Happily Ever After. This card was designed for Commander players.
It was, so they say, yeah.
I actually just had a person pull one of these out of the pack. They're like, you can just have this card. And I'm like, I don't want it.
Man, that feels bad.
So we have a 3-mana enchantment in mono white. When Happily Ever After enters the battlefield, each player gains 5 life and draws a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 5 colors among permanents you control, there are 6 or more card types among permanents you control, and or cards in your graveyard, and your life total is greater than or equal to your starting life total, you win the game.
So it's like Felidar Sovereign, but requiring way more work.
I have an issue with this card
Okay.
because there's a card
It's bad?
similar. Well, yes, it's terrible, but there's a card that is, in my opinion, a little harder to activate. That is on the ban list, and that would be Coalition Victory.
Well, the problem with Coalition Victory is
You have to be in 5 colors.
and your commander can just do it because your commander has the 5 colors required
True.
to just win it.
So I'm usually never a Debbie Downer or anything like this, but this card's name just reflects life in general. It is never Happily Ever After, so you look at this card and it's like, this is never going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure someone's pulled it off, but that's a lot of hoops to jump through. I guess you get a cool story out of it. But
Yeah, that would be the talk of the store. If someone's like, yeah, I just
Yeah.
killed everyone with Happily Ever After, I'd be like, wait, what?
This is not a good card. The next one on the list, however, is one I've definitely died to, and I think it's pretty solid. Helix Pinnacle, single green for an enchantment that has Shroud. And it has X, put X counters on Helix Pinnacle. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 100 or more tower counters on it, you win the game. So you can't target it to do anything with those counters, but your opponents also can't remove it.
Yeah, and I think the only mass ones are in green and white
Yeah.
to remove enchantments, mass enchantment removal.
Merciless Eviction.
That's
Yeah,
still
that's
white.
True.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's not the black part that's saving, it's the white part. That's what that is.
I think I've seen this in Enchantress decks where they have Sarah's Sanctum and they have Nykthos and, hey, I drop a Helix Pinnacle and I tap Sanctum for 14 and I tap Nykthos then for another 12 and pass the turn, or do it at the end of their turn because you can do it whenever.
Yep.
And then maybe you have a doubling season out too, so it doubles those counters going onto it. This is a relatively easy one to win, and because it has Shroud, you can actually play it and maybe leave it in play for a few turns while you bank it up too.
Yep, and any extra mana you just put into
Yeah.
it.
And 1 green, that's a pretty low opportunity cost just to put it in play.
See, this is one of those cards that someone would play, and I would tell everyone on the table, we need to take care of
Gotta
that.
deal with that.
Or we're going to need to kill
Yeah.
them. And they'll ignore it. I'll just be like, oh!
Well, and on top of it, in one of those Enchantress decks, it draws you a card off an enchantment, or off your Enchantresses, if not multiple cards. So yeah, that's one of the better, I think, alt-win condition cards out there, I would say. Max, next one to you.
That'd be Hellkite Tyrant, 4 red for a dragon, 6/5 body. It has flying and trample. And whenever Hellkite Tyrant deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game.
I would say Hellkite Tyrant has the crown. It has the title of card, alt-win condition card I've seen the most with the fewest alt-win conditions.
And I
it's
don't even
successfully
think
pulled
people
off.
care about the alt win. They're just like, I
No.
just want to steal all your artifacts.
Taking your artifacts is perfectly good. If you happen to hit 20, great, but like they don't care.
Yep, because you don't have to give him back if he dies.
Right. And also, people then also, part of the reason you don't get the win off it is people are like, oh no, you're not taking my 4 mana rocks in my worm coil engine. So people tend to actually swing hard at this when it comes down.
I saw this in Vegas steal 40 treasures from someone.
Oh, did they get the win then?
They got the win.
Nice. I've never seen it pull a win off, but it's always a scary card.
Yep. People forgot treasures are artifacts
Yeah.
and, gold are artifacts. So it's like, cool, you have a Revel and Riches out. You're going to win next turn. So he swung at them, connected and stole their mass amount of treasures that they had way more than needed.
I would just sacked them all.
You're playing a dragon deck. It's easy. Yeah,
It
that's
was
true.
late at night.
I mean, but you're playing a dragon deck. It's really easy just to toss this in your dragon deck and maybe get lucky. You don't need to do anything special for it. You just are going to win sometimes, but it's going to do good things along the way anyway.
It's also a great way to punish people who put artifact lands under prototype portal.
Oh, yeah. Those people.
Those people, because then you get the prototype portal and the lands it made.
We have a couple of similar cards here next. We
That's
have
so dirty.
Yeah, it is.
Scumbags unite.
We have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and Lab Maniac. If they both do the same thing, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Nobody just accidentally does these things. It's always part of a combination where I'm playing Labman or Jace and I have an infinite draw option set up somehow, whether it's Thrasios and infinite mana or whatever it is, and I'm going to draw and win. It's a pretty big win condition in CEDH. Both of those, Jace basically gave him a backup plan for Labman as well. I mean, there's not a lot to say. Those are both very viable ways to close out games in that style of deck. I don't know if I've lost to a Labman in a few years. I have before, but I think it's been a while.
It's because our Labman player doesn't show up anymore.
Was it a Nazami deck he had it in,
Yep.
if I remember
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
He graduated high school, became an adult, and now has a full-time job and can't come in anymore.
And you know what? He was always that deck was perfectly fair
Yeah.
as far as Azami decks go
Yep.
for the most part.
The goal of that deck was to just copy everybody's Soul Ring.
Yeah, right. Yes,
That's exactly
yeah.
what he would do, too.
Yeah.
He would make it his objective to either take your soul ring or copy it.
Yeah. And they're both very strong alt-win conditions, but they're also not very splashable. They're part of a strategy. You're building around it, and that's what it is. What's the next one here, Max?
Liliana's Contract. 3 black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 4 cards and you lose 4 life. Well, that's pretty good right there.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game.
I'm surprised I've never seen this cast.
Demons cost a lot of mana,
I think
just for the first part, it's
right?
perfectly
5
worth
mana,
it.
draw 4.
yeah, that's not terrible. And then it sits around being there, enabling devotion if you're playing, a great merchant in your deck, or it's a permanent you can sack if someone needs you to sacrifice
And
something.
usually in black, you're playing demons. I mean, even in my Mogus deck, I think I
Yeah.
play 3 demons.
I mean, I think where it probably really shines is if you happen to be someone who's trying to do Demon Tribal in some way.
Shadowborn Apostle.
Or maybe, yeah, there you go.
You know, the $8 common that everyone forgets about.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would for sure try it in Shadowborn Apostles. Or like if you're like Obnixilis Demons or something, I think that would make sense with the Commander Planeswalker Obnix that makes demon tokens. So maybe you're doing some kind of demon tribal shenanigans there.
Or the angel that spits out demons whenever she attacks or deals combat damage, or however she works. I can't even think of her name because I hate the card.
Well, why don't you take the next one here, Chris?
We have Mael's Aria. We have it in green, white, and red. And I can't think of the name of the clan,
Naya.
but we're just going to let it go. We have an enchantment here. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control a creature with 10 or greater. Then you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater.
And all three of those things can they do chain together. It
Yes.
checks each one, and each one happens. I don't think I've ever seen this cast, and I'm kind of surprised.
I would have played this in my Euro deck, but I could not find one.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that makes sense because Euro's going to get enough auras on him. He's, sometimes going to
Yep.
get 20/20.
And it helps with, in that situation, it helps with the Kingmaker roll, so you don't actually Kingmake.
Sure,
Because,
yeah.
I nuke this guy out, and then this guy's going to kill me, so it's like, I just sit back and play this and see what happens.
I think something like Ur-Dragon, I'd be pretty tempted. You're going to always have the bodies out for that.
Yep.
So you can just get lucky sometimes and have enough power there as well. So I've never seen it, but I think that's a solid alt-win card that you don't need to go too far in the weeds to build around it.
Right.
Next one we have here is Maze's End. It's a land from Dragon Maze. It comes into play tapped. You can tap it for 1, or you can spend 3 and bounce it to your hand and search your library for a gate card, which goes into the battlefield. if you control 10 or more gates with different names, you win the game. And there's now 11 gates. We got one more in Ravnica. I've lost to this more than once. I would bet you guys have in EDH, not even in definitely in Standard. There was a Gates deck in both Standards.
Turbofog.
I think we have at least one Golos Gates deck in the shop that's built around this that I've lost to.
Same here.
Well, the cool thing about like this card right here is this card will chain really well with Field of the Dead.
Yeah, yes.
Because you can bounce this card to go for another gate, trigger your Field of the Dead, then you have this card in your hand to play again, trigger Field of the Dead, bounce it again, go for... I see some funness going on here. Yeah. I might have these in foil, too. I guess we're going to have to put this together.
Again, it's not something you would splash, but in that deck, I'd absolutely run it. So it's a cool card, and I think it's a fun win condition. Max, thrown to you.
The next one being Mechanized Production. 2 blue for an enchantment aura out of Aether Revolt. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game.
And that doesn't require it to be that particular artifact.
Treasures.
So yeah, treasures are clues to a lesser extent, but generally treasures, maybe Thopters or Mirror or something. I've never lost to this, but I've seen it cast multiple times and had to start doing math. I've seen it cast, and I'd be like going 1, 2, 3. Okay, if he does this, I'm probably okay for a turn or two.
Yep. This got a big bump because of Brutaclad.
Yes.
I've seen it in a lot of those decks. It's in some Brea decks. It is one of those cards where it makes you pay a little bit more attention to the game when someone says, hey, I'm casting this.
It also does a thing in addition to just sitting there being a alt-win condition. Like, just as a thing that makes you a copy of that enchanted artifact every turn, that's pretty useful all on its own.
I want to see someone get real risky and copy like a Mana Crypt or something.
Oh,
so then they just have to keep flipping and be like, well, guys, either I'm going to kill myself this way or I'm going to kill you guys. This is what's going to happen here.
In your 5-color alt-win condition deck, and hope you can win with the red one we mentioned earlier.
There we go.
Yep. Chris, up next is your favorite enchantment of the bunch. You like a lot of these cards.
So we have Mirrored and Besieged. 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment. As Mirrored and Besieged enters the battlefield, choose Mirren or Phyrexian. Mirren, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. Phyrexian, Dana's a big meanie and beats me every time with this card. So Phyrexian reads, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game.
So I can speak from some experience about this card playing it. This is one of those cards like Mechanized Production where it just does good things all on its own. Being able to make a 1/1 mirror whenever you cast an artifact spell is great in an artifact deck. It's fantastic in my Vela deck. The option to do a little bit of filtering if you choose a Phyrexian mode is really useful, even if you never plan to win. I almost always pick the Mirren mode, but the Phyrexian mode is perfectly useful too. And having the option to then win the game off it, or at least kill a person off it, is amazing. And it's end step, so you don't even necessarily need to do that thing where you have to wait a full turn, which is what I did to you when I killed you with the last time. I basically top decked it. I don't even know if I did anything that game. I think I basically top decked it, played it, and moved to my end step and killed you.
I remember the first time you cast this when I was playing my mill deck, and you're like, Phyrexian. I'm like, oh, wait, that's the one that... And you're like, yes. I'm like, oh, no.
Well, it was like literally, you were playing that mill deck, and it never even occurred to me until I drew it, and I was like going to cast it in the mirror mode, and I was like, wait, that might work. I got to try it. So, yeah. I think it's a really useful card all on its own, and... hey, sometimes you're going to get a win out of it.
You know what? Our results are skewed in our matchups with my mill deck. 'Cause every time I played against you, you're playing Vela.
That's true. Well, yeah, I've played that deck. I've just hit you twice. Next time I'll have to make sure I play a different deck just to kind of see what happens.
See how it plays out. Yeah.
Max, Mortal Kombat to you.
Mortal Kombat is 2 black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if 20 or more creature cards are in your graveyard, you win the game.
Another one I have never seen cast, and I'm kind of surprised.
I have casted it.
Okay.
I played it in my Geese and Geralf deck.
Did you?
I never won.
Okay. Did you ever get close?
No, because Scavenger Grounds are like Tormod's Crypts usually interfered with me winning.
I think it's something you could win with, though. I think it's doable.
It's super viable, I think, especially in like graveyard shenanigan strategies.
Yeah, like a Muldrotha deck that's self-milling, or some kind of zombie deck that's doing some self-mill kind of stuff. It's maybe not a bad backup plan.
You also need a creature-heavy deck, though. Like
you do.
20 creatures
20's
is a
good
lot.
amount. Yeah, so you probably need to be running 30-ish creatures, maybe.
Minimum.
And be probably doing some kind of self-mill.
So that
you need to do the two
Shadowborn
of them.
Apostle deck.
Yeah, that's probably actually not a terrible place for
Because you
it.
can self-sack them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Near-death experience, Chris.
Near-Death Experience is an enchantment in white for 2 colorless and triple white. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly, I'm going to say this again, exactly 1 life, you win the game.
I've never seen it done, but that's doable.
Yeah, the way Dana plays, that's doable. Oh, guys, it's like turn 4. I'm at 5 life. Just leave me alone. No.
Hey, don't joke about that. I played a 3-player game this past weekend where by turn 5 we were all at about 12 life.
I did that in a 5-player game this weekend.
With your
With my Mogus deck.
Yeah.
And then Dana played the Wanderer and turned off my Mogus deck, and I was so mad.
Well, I didn't turn it,
And then I
didn't
made
turn it
the
off for
Wanderer
anybody
go
else,
away.
just for me. Everybody else could enjoy playing with your Mogus deck.
I made it go away.
You did. I didn't appreciate that at all.
Well, I didn't appreciate you getting out of all the damage.
I think this has to be in a life swap deck, something like Selenia, where you can set your life total at will.
Or a deck that you do a lot of paying of life.
Yeah,
For things, I can't think of anything. I mean, yeah, you could do like some Phyrexian things like with Hex Parasite, but I don't think there's a whole lot of outlets that you can just pump
Pestilence
life
or
into.
something.
Yeah.
How about Nicol Bolas Dragon God, Planeswalker, and he has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers in the battlefield, which is pretty solid. But the win condition here is his -8. Each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or Planeswalker loses the game.
There should be another line of rules text right underneath them that says, can be played as your commander.
I mean,
I have a really nice
that would be
foil one that I
legit.
want to play.
Yeah, that would be legit. I've seen him cast once or twice, but I've never seen anyone come close to. I mean, alts are generally designed to kind of win the game anyway. So, like, this just guarantees it, basically.
I mean, the chance of you even getting to 8 with this are pretty slim because usually you're -3ing right away and then slowly upticking.
Yeah. And it's also in Commander where people by default have a legendary creature in the command zone. So, I think it's a little bit tougher to do, but, I mean, I could see it happening.
Well, that's why you just, like, -3, take another turn with, like, something to double his
Right.
turn. There are some weird shenanigans that could happen, but it's highly unlikely.
Phage the Untouchable, Max.
Phage the Untouchable, 3 and quadruple black?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I thought maybe they just, I was
That
seeing
doesn't
things.
matter. That doesn't matter.
It's a 4/4 body. When Phage the Untouchable enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. But when it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. It can't be regenerated. But the best line of all says, when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. We see this in our shop every week.
In a Lazav the Multifarious deck.
Yes.
I died to it yesterday.
Oh.
At least, in one game.
The 1 week I don't go in because my wife has to double back in, he comes in.
Yeah, he was there and he played his Phage deck, or played his Lazav deck. And I died to Phage and had no way to deal with it. Phage, I think, that's where it shines, is in that Lazav deck. You make Lazav a copy of Phage as you swing in, do the damage.
Yeah, because I don't know how else really that you're going to do it because as soon as she hits, you're either going to lose or it's like everyone turns on you.
The one thing I want to see happen with this is to have someone try to set that up and have another player respond with like a living death to bring. That's what I want. I think that would be fantastic.
Challenge accepted.
But yeah, in the Lazav deck, it's absolutely a legit kill condition for sure. Revel in Riches, Chris.
Revel in Riches is a black enchantment for 4 colorless and 1 black. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token. With everyone knows what artifact or that treasures do. So the next line of text is at beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game.
I've won games with Revel in Riches.
I have as well.
More than one occasion.
I borrowed someone's deck and won with it.
Nice. Do you have this in your decks, Max?
I do not.
Again, this one doesn't require you to do a whole lot of special stuff. and it generates pretty good value even if you aren't trying to get the win condition off it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So where I think it really shines is the ability to flash it in response to a board wipe when no one's ready for it. And I've done that at least one time in my Corsa deck.
Or you play that 2-mana, I think it's a goblin, comes into play.
Take everyone's, or get a treasure for every
each enchantment and
dockside
artifact.
extortionist. Yeah. There's multiple ways that you can kind of cheat this without even having to try too hard.
I had someone have that dockside and a soul herder in play.
Ooh.
And he kept flickering the dockside.
Oh, rough.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
America.
Chris, Simic Ascendancy.
Simic Ascendancy. We have an enchantment in green and blue, which is Simic, which might be the pin that we are sending out for Twitter,
indeed.
correct?
It is.
Awesome. So for 1 colorless in Simic, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put onto a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game.
I have never seen this in a game, and I'm shocked I haven't.
Well, I'm sure they're in the decks.
Yeah, I would think every Azuri deck would be running this,
And that's where I've seen it.
or every Varel deck, or basically anything that's Simic and based around +1 counters.
Right.
Even if it's not, just the ability to put counters on for mana
pretty
is
useful.
huge on a 2-mana enchantment.
Attracts it.
Yeah, right. So, I'm genuinely shocked. I have not seen more of it, but that's a really good card. I don't think you run it outside of that because there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's one of those ones that I think is not good outside of +1 counter Simic deck, but in the +1 counter Simic deck, it's pretty fantastic. Chris, I'll throw Test of Endurance your way as well here.
Test of Endurance. 2 colorless, double white. Enchantment. Again.
A lot of enchantments, yeah.
You know, I'm curious what the overall number is. Do you have that, Dana?
I don't. I didn't break it down.
All right. So for this enchantment is at beginning of your upkeep, if you have 50 or more life, you win the game. So it costs less than Felidar Sovereign or Guardian.
Yeah.
I get them confused.
I do too.
Felidar Guardian
Felidar Sovereign.
wins the game too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Good point.
But you need 10 more life. So, I mean, the offset's pretty good.
Yeah. I think same thing we would say about Felidar Sovereign. If you're playing that Aurora Pillow Fort deck, it does everything you want. It gains you life. You can kind of sit back, and it gives you a way to win the game.
Yeah, honestly, if you're playing any kind of life game strategy, I'd jam this in there.
Yeah.
Just shy of half of this list is enchantments. 15 of the
nice.
32.
All right.
Okay.
And it makes sense because a lot of them, they require you to set something up, and an enchantment is probably the most consistent way to do that because artifacts tend to not really do that kind of thing. So.
And if we take out Commander in general,
Yep.
so you're not thinking of the game as Commander even exists, it is harder to remove enchantments.
Yes.
So it gives you the option to actually get them to win.
We've got 3 up next I will kind of lump together. Vraska the Unseen, Vraska Golgari Queen, and Vraska Scheming Gorgon. The first and the last one have alts that make tokens that when they deal combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And Golgari Queen makes an emblem that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So 2 of them make the tokens, one of them just makes all your creatures do that. The only one I've actually, I think, seen cast is, at least in a Commander game, is Vraska the Unseen. But I ran it in my Glissa deck years ago, and on more than one occasion managed to kill somebody with it. And like I mentioned during our games we played segment, I died to a Vraska the Unseen token against Dan's Muldrotha deck last weekend.
Yep.
So it's again, Vraskas are really good. Both those Vraskas, the first 2 especially, are just good cards in general that you might get lucky and happen to make the tokens.
I'm surprised you haven't seen Golgari Queen. I mean, her uptick is hugely powerful.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen, cause she was a big deal in Standard for a while.
Yes.
But I don't know if I've seen her cast, or if I have, it was in a Super Friends deck. It wasn't outside of that. But I definitely have not seen the emblem go off, whereas I have seen the tokens come off of Vraska the Unseen.
I saw the emblem off of Golgari Queen once, and that was against Nate's Golos deck.
Okay.
Because he plays, it's all Super Friends.
Okay.
And he's just doing everything. He's like, oh, I'll just alt her and start swinging at you guys. Because we had everyone locked in a stalemate. So.
Oh, sure. And something's going to get through eventually.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are all perfectly viable ways to win games, I think, though. I think those are all of them, I think. There's a few we didn't talk about because they're things that aren't really doable in Commander.
Like Hedron Archive.
Hedron Archive, because you need to have. It's really tough to make copies of that and still have it do the things you want it to do.
Yep.
Because one needs to be exiled, so you would have to make all the copies and then exile that one last, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through there. So Max just put Approach into a deck.
Yes.
Having looked at the full list and talked about this, does anyone have any plans to try to run any of these?
I have tried some of these, like the if your life total is X at your upkeep.
Yep.
I've tried those back when I was a new EDH player because it's cool. Like, it's kitchen table-y. I hate to put it that way, but it's janky, it's fun, and then you realize, like, oh, it's not that fun.
Sure.
I think Simic Ascendancy would be fun if I had a Simic deck.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, the coin flip one is the one that really interests me.
Nice. I was just looking at this again, and I was kind of thinking, I could very easily put those Vraskas in my Glissa deck because it's kind of a grindy deck that stays alive a long time anyway. Makes it a little bit easier to kick those ults off, get something out. And I also could run a Helix Pinnacle in that deck if I wanted to. And I do have Revel and Riches in there already. So I was wondering if I couldn't maybe run a few alt-win, because that's one of the things that deck has always struggled with is winning games.
Yeah.
So maybe I could go that route and just run a handful of alt-win conditions in that deck and have that be my backup plan there. Because I do have Cabal Coffers in there, so if I get Cabal Coffers and Urborg out, and I have a few tutors, that gives me a mana dump, and I can probably, in 2 or 3 turns, get Helix Pinnacle up to 100 mana. So I can maybe find 4 slots for a couple of Vraskas and Helix Pinnacle.
And this is what's going to happen. He's going to play this deck at midnight. Ult one of these, attack somebody,
and forget that it kills them.
That it kills them. That's going to be like 3 turns around. He's going to be like, oh, wait, I just killed all you guys like 3 turns ago.
New rule. Anytime you think you're going to win on a Planeswalker ult, we all should have the emblem so we remember which one does what.
Yeah.
Speaking of emblems, did you end up putting an emblem for your Gideon into your deck box?
I have one, but I did not.
Okay.
Why, did you find one somewhere?
Yeah, I have I think I have 2 or 3 of them in a box.
Okay, I do have one. And actually, I started working on this today. I started putting together a little box of tokens and emblems for my decks in particular.
See, tokens I'm fine with. It's the emblems because you start forgetting about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the deck. Like, some decks always make the same 1 token, so it's not a big deal if you're just using dice. But I've got a couple decks that make 3 or 4 different kinds of things depending on what's going on, and I needed to start differentiating.
The way that I always tell people when they run the token cards, like especially in Commander when you're doing lots of tokens, you only need 2.
The one that doesn't have, the one that can attack, and one that can't.
And the one that's not, that can't. Yep.
Yeah. That's a big problem with dice.
And then you just jam a whole bunch of dice on top of this. Yeah. This is how many there are.
Yep.
All right. I think that will wrap up this show on alt-win conditions, gentlemen. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDR_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We'll be back on Thursday. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.